Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Sunday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, as the snow is continuing to advance up through New Jersey and now we're moving into New York City and Long Island. And I'm talking about the steadier accumulating snow. There's actually been some light precipitation that developed ahead of it just by a couple of hours. And knowing snow lovers getting very nervous, and even as a forecaster, you get nervous when it's like this. You just want to get that steady snow underway so that you can just sort of get that weight off your head. But it's there on the radar, and everything is moving according to plan. There hasn't really been too much changing in terms of what's been going on weather-wise. Everything is played out as advertised, and we're going to get right to it tonight. Just a big welcome for those of you who are watching from my weather app, which you can download on Google Play or on the App Store. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee, just search for that and download and enjoy. We also have folks from my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Chaffee, from Angry Ben's Angry Weather's Facebook page, and from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Stormwatch. So let's get right to it as we take a look at what's happening. First off, I'm going to go right to the radar. We have also, by the way, coinciding with this, a severe weather outbreak that occurred and is still occurring across the deep south and into the southeast. There were a number of tornadoes today. Some of them in Alabama, one in Alabama, I believe it was Salem, Alabama, got hit very hard with the severe weather that moved through here. It's kind of a early spring outbreak of severe storms, and you know you're dealing with a lot of strong dynamics when you have a weather system like this that's producing severe weather on the southern end. Alice. Uh, Alcina Al-Wazali, thanks for you've got the moderate snow and you're near islip is starting to stick on the road. So I got to pull my, hold on a second. This way I can at least see if it's picking up out my own door because I'm only a couple of miles from MacArthur Airport, so it must be getting very close. Okay, on to the radar tonight, which is really front and center with what's happening. And the precipitation on the radar has been gradually expanding through the evening hours. You take a look at it right here. You can see the darker greens that are down in southern Pennsylvania and also into northernmost Maryland. We are getting, looking at the hourly observations, moderate to heavy snow has been occurring there for a while and continues. Although once you get down into Maryland, particularly when you get down to Baltimore and Washington D.C., there it is just plain rain. But meanwhile, where you see all the green area here, this is where you've got your steady snow, and you can see it's just at least on this last radar check. I just want to see, I can't see where the timestamp is, but I just refreshed it a little while ago. It's probably on about a 15-minute delay. So just have to kind of wait for that whole area to slide in, which it's going to do. All the models are showing it. The activity that we're seeing on the radar is really very consistent with what has been happening, and it gives you a good confidence of what is going to happen going forward, because all of this area that's expanding down to the south and west of, say, New York City it's got to get here. This is all that has to slide up northeastward and on up into southern New England. It's just a matter of, I guess, for those of you who are still waiting for it, to be patient. And plus, we have some temperature issues. There's no question of that. The temperatures, however, as the intensities are picking up, you can actually, if you look at the numbers themselves from where they were earlier from a few hours ago when some of these numbers were up over the 40-degree mark, how quickly the temperatures have cooled, even in places where precipitation has been very light. Like, for example, across to Long Island, we're sitting at temperatures now that are starting to come down to the freezing mark, 32 at Bethpage. Islip is at 33. You're looking up the Hudson Valley, White Plains at 32. This whole event is going to be really driven by the intensity of the snowfall, because the temperatures here uh, are very much borderline from the standpoint, excuse me, the standpoint of the surface temperatures. The temperatures aloft are certainly cold enough, so you just have to drive the intensity. Once you get the intensity of the snow to come into play, that'll knock an extra degree off a lot of these numbers and keep the temperatures somewhere in that 31, 32 degree range. And actually, if you look out just not that far to the west and north, temperatures are in the upper 20s to around 30 up all across Pennsylvania and up the middle and upper Hudson Valley. So there's a little bit of cold air, and as the system slides to the east, that cold air, that colder surface air, even if we're only talking about a degree or two, it's going to continue to filter eastward, and that will then help the accumulations get along. So we got to get the intensity in here, and then the temperatures will pretty much take care of themselves. On up through southern New England, where all of this is going to be headed through Connecticut and Rhode Island, and eventually up into Massachusetts. The same applies. You just have to wait for the precip to get there, and then the temperatures will take care of themselves. One of the hints about this surface low itself, it's sliding eastward, and that was very key. When you look at the winds from Maryland down through Virginia, you see all those wind barbs there. You've got northerly winds all the way down into North Carolina. Without seeing the pressures, I was just guessing off the wind field. The low center is probably elongated somewhere in here, stretching up into central North Carolina, down into near the South Carolina, North Carolina border. So as that slow slides more and more toward the coast, you're going to see the temperatures here in the New York, in New Jersey, and areas to the east and east northeast of there make that 1 or 2 degree correction that's required. Notice along the Carolinas, you're in the 60s, so there's a warm sector in here, a very sharp warm sector going down into South Carolina. And then, of course, you had that severe weather outbreak across Georgia and Alabama. All those winds have gone to gusty northwesterly, so their weather front has passed on through. But the severe weather was just incredibly impressive today from what we've seen. I'm going to go back to the radar, in fact, just to show you what's going on now down across the south. We've got some heavy rains and some embedded isolated thunderstorms moving through South Carolina, and then you have got this snaking line across southern Georgia, southwest Georgia, down into the Florida Panhandle, and out into the Gulf of Mexico. At one point earlier today, we had 3 tornado watches up all at the same time, and we still have tornado watches up for much of the southern half of South Carolina, southeastern Georgia, and into the Florida Panhandle. And if you look closely here, we're going to pull up Tallahassee's Weather Service office, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly 5 tornado warnings here that are going on at the moment, along with this large area that is indicated as a severe thunderstorm warning. So severe weather definitely working overtime across the southeast. Now, with respect to the snow amounts, this has been a fairly straightforward look as far as the snow amounts are concerned. We had an idea earlier this week that this was going to be a general 3 to 6 inch snowfall. These are the Weather Service's numbers. And I just want to just say, from the standpoint, from my own perspective, from where I take care of, which is basically a general coverage from eastern Pennsylvania through southern New England, outside of that area, it's hard for me to really know the impacts of the topography and I just don't know, I'm not familiar with, because I don't live there, in terms of the local climate, because every place has some sort of weird thing that happens under certain circumstances. So I defer to the Weather Service in those instances because they understand those areas a bit much better than I do. And you can see the numbers that they're printing out here, uh, 6 inches, 7 inch amounts throughout much of the stretch from south central Pennsylvania and southeastern Pennsylvania on up into southern New England. My numbers actually are on the lower end of the range. And I'll just bring up my map. I had it up here on the screen before, but I must have accidentally erased it. So let me just bring up my forecast, my original forecast, and my early call, which I did 4 days ago. I'm especially proud of that early call, at least if it turns, if if these numbers do verify, because I really didn't change very much. I can understand the absolute frustration that it must be for somebody if you're on an app, or if you are forecast shopping, as I like to call it. Like, I'm astounded that people that uh, how many different sources of people, different sources of weather that folks grab onto in a situation like this, particularly snow lovers who, they're jumping from channel to channel to channel on television. Then you've got the cable outlets and everything else, and all the other stuff that's flying around on social media. And it's understandable that you could probably get incredibly confused as to what is happening. So I try to be very consistent and try to make a very early, a good early call, so that if I have to make any changes, they're going to be on the minor side, or hopefully on the minor side. So where I've differed from the Weather Service from earlier forecasts today and from other forecasts was the area in central New Jersey, south and east of that line that I've drawn, that yellow line that cuts through New Jersey and then heads down north of Baltimore, north of Washington, D.C. I kept that in a general 1 to 3 inch zone, and south of the blue line, just very little, either a mix or perhaps just plain rain in those areas. Uh, it's possible that cold air may wind up draining down there later on tonight once the low gets far enough north, and you could see precipitation, if it's raining, changing over to snow. And in some areas north of there, it may have started. It may have started to snow, gone over to perhaps some rain or sleet. It may wind up going back as that cold air, that slightly colder air from the west starts to drain in. But I pretty much have my boundary lines very close to where I had it. The only change I made was I added that 6 inch plus zone in the orange. I might have been a little bit a little bit aggressive with that on the southern end, and perhaps I should have cut it off a little bit. But in general, in that zone, I thought somebody could wind up with 6 inches or more. And if this system winds up sliding a little bit more to the east, you might want to tuck that line down a little bit closer to the coastline. But it's really important when you're gathering your information, try to limit your um, your sources. There are a lot of reputable sources out there that you can use, and the Weather Service is one of them for sure. But try not to go I'm sorry, forecast shopping, because ultimately what winds up happening, what most people will do is uh, they'll gravitate to whatever the highest number they can find. And oftentimes, since they don't even really recognize their geography, they'll look at an entire state and they'll just pick the biggest number. And that's the number that they'll focus on and get into their head. So in a state like New Jersey, where if you're in South Jersey, you can get an inch, and in North Jersey, you could wind up getting 8 inches. You wind up focusing on the 8, and then that's when you start to see. I always know when folks are not properly reading maps, because they'll quote numbers that uh, not only are outrageous, but they'll attribute those numbers to me when I would have never said anything remotely close to that. So again, just to review, it's a general. You want to go 3 to 6, 4 to 8 type snowfall. I think that's fair. The amounts are probably going to pick up a bit as we head into eastern Connecticut and on up into northern Rhode Island and through eastern Massachusetts, where there's some 8 and 9 inch amounts being indicated. I think that's doable in those areas. Uh, the slightly colder profile by the time the low goes by there, and the way the precip is developing, I think that's certainly doable. And of course, the snows lighten up as you go north and northwest. 4 to 6 inch amounts through much of Maine, except the northern part, which is just forecast to get 2 to 3, and down along the coast for a change, where the snow has been lacking this winter in Maine, particularly in the southwestern part down near Portland. Amounts here on the order of 6 to 7, and then you start to get into some numbers 8, 9, and 10. And there'll be a little lake effect going on at some point with all of this up in off of Lake Ontario in upstate New York, where there are some bigger amounts being indicated north and west and north of Syracuse, for example. So we'll watch that action eventually when that kicks in. We start to go further south. You can see the amounts begin to tail off. In the mountains in western Virginia, there'll probably be some 2, 3, 4 inch amounts, maybe some amounts even a bit higher than that. Western Maryland, 4, 5, and 6. And of course, after that, the amounts go down in a very, very big way. So let's take a look. Let's go to the surface map, the latest surface map, which was from 4 o'clock this afternoon. And there's your low center, consolidating in between South Carolina and Georgia. So now this is at 4 o'clock, and just based on those surface obs, we know that low center is probably somewhere in central South Carolina. The warm front, and this is very interesting, at least from the standpoint of what's going to happen overnight. The warm front's kind of pinned down there in North Carolina and extends out to the east-northeast. The low center is going to try and go toward the weakness here off the North Carolina coast and then offshore. It's going to try to slide out to the south, to the east, more than it's moving toward the north. So I'm wondering whether some of the models that have brought the sleet line and the rain line as further north up through New Jersey and to just off the south shore of Long Island, perhaps that might be a little bit too far north. So we'll only know when this is all over with how that will have all played out. And of course, as we go further north on the map, there's the surface here. You have a weak high that's analyzed just north of Plattsburgh. The cold air is marginal. You really have to go back out to the west of say Detroit, that stationary boundary you see out to the west. So this is where let's call it the real cold air is, where you've got temperatures in the teens, and then you move up into Minnesota and through Iowa, you've got single digits and below zero temperatures there with that high coming down. That's a very cold high that is moving southeastward, and that cold air is going to get in here later tomorrow, and will be in the east in the northeast in particular for pretty much through the middle part of the week, and hold the temperatures back even as we get toward the latter part of the week. So let's jump to the HRRR model. Let's see if I'm just going to see if the new one's out. It's just starting. All right, it's out 14 hours, so it's out far enough. This is hour 1 as the HRRR is, seeing the radar. The darker blues, that's where your heavy snow is. You can see how the HRRR analyzes where the sleet is in southern New Jersey, south of 195, and then snaking back across Maryland and northern Virginia. So we'll take it along. Let's see what it does on this one with that sleet area. See, it brings it up to Long Island at about 1 a.m., about midnight, 1 a.m., just right along the South Shore coast. But there's the cold air that's coming in from the west, however slight that it is fighting it. And you'll see here between here's midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., the snow area actually comes back to a large degree between 1 and 2 a.m. And then you've got those darker blues that are embedded in there. So the back edge here at 2 a.m. starting to pull out of south central Pennsylvania. By 3 a.m., we are at into western New Jersey. By 4 a.m., it's out to about New York City, and then we have 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. It is a little bit slower. It looks like the system is just an hour or so slower than what it was on previous runs. So it's taking maybe a little longer for this to get out of the way. But by daybreak, this is 5 a.m., the snows west of New York, from New York City west, are done. Long Island gets an extra hour out of it. And then by 7 a.m., your low is southeast of Cape Cod, and you're getting those heavy snows in eastern Massachusetts. This is, let's go back. So here is 4 a.m., and you've got some heavy snow bands in parts of Long Island, eastern Connecticut, southeastern Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, and then it goes away bye-bye to the northeast and intensifies as it makes its way toward Nova Scotia. So we're at the point anyway that, except for the HRRR, we can jump from model to model and just go crazy on it. But really, it's pretty straightforward here as to what's going to happen, and we'll just have to wait to we'll just watch and let it play out, and then we'll be done with it. So the other thing I want to switch to is the region in the south. So let's take a look at what it's doing with all this severe weather. And we're at what looks like a peak in the thunderstorm activity right now, and then that line of showers and storms gradually weakens as it moves off the southeast coast and falls apart over Florida, and then moves away to the northeast. So we'll switch over to the GFS now, and we'll take a look at what's in store for the rest of the week. I kind of think that the GFS is a little too wound up with this low, a little too deep. Although where it has the low center, it is in central South Carolina, which is where the last GFS run. So this was for 7 o'clock tonight. Runs right off of the northeastern coast of North Carolina, and then moves pretty much straight east northeast. If you get that track like that, it's rather likely that you're going to see that sleet line just come to a grinding halt right as it's about to get toward the shores of southern Long Island, and then it's just going to stop. So most of the event, even for the coastal areas from New York City eastward, it's going to be mostly a snow event, I think, as that low runs away to the northeast. And then you've got this big high by late in the day on Monday. Much of the nation's quiet for a change, which is a good thing. And as we go through the week, there really isn't too much happening other than very cold air into the eastern part of the United States. It'll start to moderate a bit on Thursday, and there is going to be a little energy here. There's a storm that's coming into California on Tuesday night. You can see that low that comes in near San Francisco with heavy rains and snows. And once again, we've got energy from that's running eastward. But I don't know how much of this is going to wind up holding together. It looks like the system just sort of weakens as it moves eastward. I haven't had really a lot of time today to analyze anything beyond what's been going on now. So I'm just kind of openly speculating with regards to the pattern going forward. And I think after that, it looks like we're going to start seeing lows start to trend more toward the Great Lakes again, which means we'll warm up ahead of them with cold fronts. And this might be, I don't know, it's quite possible the way the longer range pattern is evolving that maybe this system for tonight might be the last one that we'll see, because here we are on day 12 on the GFS, and we were at March 15th. So we're at the point where you really have to have an almost perfect setup for something to happen, and that certainly is a tough thing to accomplish if you don't have any kind of blocking to work with. So the system tonight might be it for you snow lovers. Let's just really quick take a look at what this model's doing with the upper air for the long range. By the way, I will be leaving the chat open I'm not leaving the chat over, but YouTube leaves the chat open on these live streams after the live stream is over. I will be here, and if you've got any additional questions and comments after we're done with this, after we're done with the live stream, I will try and answer them as best I can. But running back on the upper air, there's no blocking to speak of. So these weather systems kind of move along. You've got this, deep trough here in the eastern part of the United States, bringing in the cold air. But by the end of the week, you start to see that trough lift out, and a ridge comes back in its place, and you're getting this Pacific energy that moves eastward. It's not a whole lot of cold air to deal with going forward, and it looks like there's much more troughing out in the west in the longer term than in the east. So again, this may be it. Okay. And actually, after dealing with 3 weather systems in 4 days, which is really unusual for my neck of the woods, to get even in an active pattern, they're usually several days apart, but we've had 3 weather systems in 4 days, and each one has been a bit more aggressive. The one that follows has been more aggressive, so this is the most aggressive of the 3. Here's the, by the way, just to show you the Storm Prediction Center. And we've got 2 working tornado watches. If you're watching this on a replay, it's 8:27 p.m. Eastern time. So be sure to check your local National Weather Service office for the latest watches and warnings that may be up for the Southeast. I would think that based on what's happening, that once these tornado watches are done, there won't be any additional severe weather watch boxes going up. So it's a matter of just having this line play out. And you'll notice behind it that the Storm Prediction Center actually did a pretty good job with this. They had an area of enhanced risk today being indicated, embedded inside a much larger area of slight and marginal risk for severe weather. So it looks like they had a pretty good handle on the whole situation down to the south. So, oh, you know what? I promised Scott Briller I'd do the plumes. The SREF plumes, which the new ones are going to be coming out. They could be out any moment. They may already be out. So let's take a look. The SREF model, for those of you, I've used it, I have put it up from time to time, is it's a model from Stony Brook University. It's got 26 different variations or members to it, and it plots it on this graph here, and we call it the plumes, and the each member will produce different parameters with regards to precipitation type, 3-hourly temperatures, dew points, etc. But it also does total snowfall, which is what I have up now. This was the old one from Newark, New Jersey. And each member is plotted here. You'll notice that about half the members are above the mean, half the members are below the mean. The problem with using this model is the average doesn't really tell you very much. It doesn't tell you, obviously some of the members are seeing a less aggressive event, some of them, and half are seeing a less aggressive, half are seeing more. Well, it's going to be either or for the most part. The chances that it's going to come in and split the difference and be right in the middle is pretty low. So it runs every 6 hours. The last one came out at 3 o'clock Eastern time, gave Newark 4 inches of snow out of this. That's the average, okay? The highest member gave almost 8, and the lowest member gave 1.3 inches. All right, but the average wound up being 4. So let's take a look and see what the new one is, if it's out, and it's not. And you can go to the map on the bottom here and hit points. I'm going to hit a few points here to see if we've got any. Sometimes they have some. Okay, so here is New York City. Now this is very interesting because the New York City new plume is now at 5.52. Okay, that's up from 6 hours ago. So we look for the trend. That is really the most important thing. You look for the trend on the SREF. If are they going higher? Are they going lower? And it appears that at the very last minute they are going higher. And pull up a couple of other points. White Plains is not in. Bridgeport, not in. Islip is in. Now, Islip has gone up as well. I think it only had 2 inches before. Now it has a little over 3 inches. All right, let's check out the station that's near Hamilton, New Jersey. And that's not in. I'm in here a little early. Trenton, it gives an average of 4. So all these numbers are up from the previous run. The station for Philadelphia will go in between Philadelphia. Yep, see, not still missing. That is on its way to Reading. And here we've got 6.59. Let's see if Reading itself is in. Yes. 7.14. Lancaster, where it has been snowing heavily, not in yet. Harrisburg, where it's been snowing heavily, also not in yet. Down near Hanover. Yeah, still missing. Let's try Scranton. And Scranton, it gives 6.02. Don't want to, let's see if we can get a few out from southern New England. In Connecticut, just stationed there, it's north of Hartford, is not in yet, I believe. Yeah, it's missing. Willimantic, Windham, Connecticut, not in. Near Woonsocket, 5.84. And up toward Boston, not in. South and west of Boston, 6.51. Plymouth, Mass, 2.99. I had a 2.99 here, and that's got 3. MBN is a model, so there's a member that's sitting just above the mean that I seem to be clicking on. Yeah, 2.99. So the SREF plumes are certainly indicating that the trend is higher with this. By the way, that New York City is LaGuardia, so it's possible that if they had one for Central Park, that the number would be higher than what's being indicated for LaGuardia, which is, as I said, 5.50 for the plume. So everything here says that what's supposed to happen is going to happen. So if you're still waiting patiently or impatiently, you're just going to have to wait a little bit more. And we'll get this snow out of the way and be done with it. Okay, I'm on the chat board with you guys. The late chats are all loading up at the moment, so they're playing catch up. I'm Dave Michael. You're praying that Essex County doesn't get more than 3 or 4 inches. Well, you know what? It's quite possible that we could finish up on the low end if the radar, for whatever reason, decides that it's not going to be, is not going to be as bullish as what the model suggests. Because at the end of the day, that's the reality. It's what's actually on the radar. Very sad there. Iron Mines had 14 people killed in those Alabama tornadoes from the severe weather outbreak today. Roads are completely covered in Freehold, New Jersey. Snow after 2 hours of moderate snow and sleet. More to come, though, of course, on the radar, Scott. Ghost in a nutshell. Winter just drags out too long. Well, certainly the recent history in the last number of years, we've had these extensions of wintertime. Michael Leona, that's my buddy, so don't knock him out. That's a saying that he and I have. Must we listen to all this? Yes, you must. Absolutely. You made my day, Michael. Big heart, okay? I'm afraid I may be busting too high for Lakewood. Izzy D, this is the time where you don't sit back and panic. You made your forecast. Now stick with it for a little while. The bulk of the precip, it doesn't come until after, from here on into the early morning hours. You still have a long way to go with regards to, what's happening. The low still has to work its way up northeastward, and all that precip that's on the radar has to make its way here. how do you, Johnny Quest, how do you find out the percent of normal rainfall in the area? So go to your local National Weather Service office page, and there should be a Climo link on there, and they do a daily report. And on that report, they'll give you the numbers as far as how far below or above normal you are for. Now, they have set points, and they're usually major points. The bigger towns and cities in your particular area would come up. So you would you pull those down, and you'll get some numbers out of it. Peter Bicker, the mixed line sitting right now over Philadelphia. So everyone south of Philadelphia is getting rain. Well, let's see what the observations bear out, because we have the 8 o'clock obs. So let me pull them up, and we'll see what's doing uh, at uh, at those stations down to the southern Pennsylvania and down into southern New Jersey. So uh, just give me a second here. I'm noticing outside my deck uh, door that my deck is now snow covered. Uh, you know, a light coating, a coating of snow, and I'm not seeing much in the way of flakes coming down. But let's pull up the obs and see what the obs are telling us. Okay, so Atlantic City, Wildwood, Millville, Mount Holly has moderate rain, so at 33, so it's just right above there. Trenton is reporting snow in 35. I'm just wondering about Trenton's observations lately. They've been a little bit on the squirrely side at times. Moderate snow in Sussex and northwest New Jersey, half a mile visibility. Everybody's either at 32 or 33. Moderate at Caldwell, Somerville, light snow 3/4, so just under moderate at Teterboro. Morristown just under moderate at 32. So they're all filling in here. Light snow at Toms River. Allaire is 1 mile in light snow. Sleet reported at Philadelphia at the airport there. North Philadelphia is light snow, visibility a mile. Bluebell, 1 mile. Light snow, no visibility restriction given at Doylestown. Quakertown, snow and fog, 3/4. Percassie is light snow and a mile. Pottstown, 3/4, so just under moderate snow. Moderate at Lancaster, 34. Their thermometer's been stuck at 34. Coatesville, light snow and 32. Reading, moderate snow and 32. Light at Allentown, 3/4. Anything under 3/4 of a mile visibility is considered moderate. So I always look at 3/4 as just borderline moderate there. Light at Mount Pocono, moderate at Hazleton. Well, they have elevation, so that helps. Half a mile visibility there. Leeton snow, Leeton snow and 32. Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, light snow 3/4 and at 30. Raining at Wilmington, Dover, Georgetown, it's all rain down as you go down into Delaware and into the Delmarva Peninsula. Moderate snow at Harrisburg, State College is light, Williamsport light, 3/4. New York City, moderate snow now in New York City in Central Park at 32. I'm sorry, 33 temperature, half a mile visibility. Light rain in Baltimore, 34. Heavy rain reported at Washington, D.C. at 37. I just want to check the Long Island obs and the areas to the northeast. And here we go. So we have moderate snow at LaGuardia, New York City. Light snow, but almost moderate at Kennedy. Moderate at Newark. On Long Island. Farmingdale is almost moderate. They're 3/4. 1 mile at MacArthur Airport. I'm 2 miles from MacArthur Airport, so I'm not seeing very much out my back door here, but it's a little deceptive when I look out the back door. Sometimes it looks, because I have a lot of trees in the back, so it looks like it's snowing lightly. Then I'll look out the front door, and it's snowing harder. But it's all light snows, but visibility is coming down on Long Island. With temperatures are mostly now between 32 and 33. White Plains, 3/4 at a temperature of 32. Most of the areas in the southern areas of the Hudson Valley are reporting temperatures at the freezing mark, and even in the northern area, also in the northern areas. Newburgh light, moderate at Montgomery. Poughkeepsie is 3/4. And let's see if there are any other obs that I can pull up here. In Connecticut, Bradley is light, moderate at Danbury now, and at Waterbury, Oxford. Light snows at Bridgeport, Meridian, New Haven, Chester, Groton, and Willimantic. And we've got light snow now in Rhode Island and Providence. snow and sleet at Block Island, which is interesting. And westerly is light snow and 35. Nothing yet at Boston or Worcester. Light snow at Westfield, just cloudy at Provincetown, and Nantucket is cloudy at the moment. By the way, I'm just noticing that the sea temperatures are all hovering around the 40-degree mark, but I don't think that is having any real impact as far as the as far as the weather is concerned. I know, Dave Michael. Enough of the snow. I'm actually have had enough here with regards to this. JPTR2A, thanks for hitting super chat. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. That's definitely a cigar for me. It's actually 2 cigars. Thank you so much. Uh, if you had a question, by all, thank you so much. No forecast shopping here. I appreciate that. That's a really big deal. Try not to do that. I know from the snow lover standpoint, you're trying to gain every advantage you can in figuring out how much snow you're going to get so you can enjoy it. And you're going to gravitate to the highest numbers, and you don't want to do that. Watching from central New York, Kenneth Corden, Finger Lakes. Oh, it's snowing again. How much do you expect for our area? Up and through upstate New York, the amounts from the Weather Service up your way, I'll defer to them because I'm so focused on my own area right now that when there's nothing going on here, if it's going to be rain, I'll spend more time looking at what's happening on up in other areas. So I'll just tell you, I mean, at least from the standpoint of the Weather Service numbers, if they would just plot, just bringing the map up, it sometimes takes a while for them to plot. If I remember from off memory, they were going for some. Oh, I'm seeing the numbers like 3, 4 inches, 6 inches being indicated for Syracuse, 4 for Rochester. It's mostly a 3, 4 inch affair up in the Finger Lakes from what the Weather Service is doing. And I get with all the action that's happening is really down near the coast anyway. That certainly makes a whole lot of sense to me with what they're doing forecast wise. Growing up with Daphne, the only big snow we got was November of 2018. Well, I'll tell you something. Scott Briller pointed out a great statistic that, at least for New York City anyway, there's never been a season where you've had 2 6-inch snowfalls where they both occurred outside the 3 traditional winter months, which are December, January, and February. At least meteorologically, we kind of look at those 3 months just to keep things neat. So we call that meteorological winter. There's never been a season where you had 2 6-inch snowfalls where both of those occurred outside that 3-month window. That's interesting. And when you think about the way the winter has played out for the areas near the coast that have been sitting in a snow hole, it is it's not a shock. Okay, it's not a shock. So if you joined late, let me bring my snowfall forecast map up again. For those of you who missed out the first time, I'll bring it up on the screen for you. And from where I did my early call, I really didn't change very much. This is fairly consistent. The only thing I added was that 6-inch plus zone as you streak across Pennsylvania and northern New Jersey to just north of New York City and into Connecticut. 3 to 6 inches for Long Island, and for the area in central Jersey north of that yellow line, again, drawn on a diagonal. The way the snow profile matches pretty much how the low is moving and how the precip is moving. And 1 to 3 south of that yellow line, I have been consistently lower on the southern end of this than just about any other forecaster or forecast that I saw. And I saw those forecasts, by the way, after I did mine. That's another thing. When I make my forecast maps, I don't look at when I'm doing my snow forecasting, or any forecasting for that matter, I don't look at all at what anybody else is doing. And most of the time, I hardly have time to really pay attention. The problem is, in a situation like this, you have it front and center. If I'm scrolling through Facebook, people are putting maps up. Or they're saying that so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that. The Weather Service maps I look at after they're up, and many times when I do my early call, they aren't even at that point yet. So I try do it. I do it this way. I've done it all my career because I just don't want to be biased by anybody in either direction. I want to try. You want to try to make the most objective forecast that you can. I'm going to freshen up this New York City radar. There we go. So at least from the standpoint of the New York City radar, the greens and particularly the darker greens, that's where you're seeing your moderate to heavy snow bands, and the band that is now back up into northeastern New Jersey from its radar perspective is the one that's coming in now. It's producing that moderate snow in and around New York City. It looks like there's a little bit of a gap in between there. I may be sitting now in that gap at the moment. Radar still in the process of just kind of blossoming out. I'm going to change this. Let's go to the Mount Holly radar, which is it's out of Fort Dix in New Jersey, so it's a little bit further to the south. And we'll take a look at its view. And you can see the area in New Jersey is blossoming out and moving up to the northeast. A few gaps here and there. You've got some heavy precip. When you get down into Delaware, the yellows here, probably heavy rain that is moving now northward into the colder environment and aloft. So when that precip reaches up a little bit further to the north, it's going to change over to snow. So all of this has to play through. It all has to play through up toward New York City and points north and east of there. They get connected sometimes. Let's shrink this down. Back to the chat we go. Patricia Owens, really coming down hard now in northeastern Pennsylvania. How much you're going to get? You're probably going to be in that 6-inch plus zone, Patricia, from what I see. 33, rain and snow mixed in Long Branch. You're right on the coast. Just let me scroll back. Sierra Sites. How long is this supposed to last for Lancaster? Our local says it's going to end around 11. It might go a little longer than that. There's still plenty of precip there. I would think after about midnight, maybe 1, 2 a.m., it should be done out your way. Maybe closer to the 1 a.m. Before this all moves out to the northeast. Young cash register, aka Little Broomstick, could be a crazy 1920 winter. Please. Okay, too far ahead. Too far ahead. My daughter, Patricia Owens, my daughter has to see if she has to travel to New Jersey for her teaching job from Pennsylvania, but we're not sure how much we're going to get. I have to tell you, in a situation like this, particularly in the month of March, and particularly when you have borderline temperatures, it's been my experience that if you wind up with half a foot on the grass, you're going to wind up with about 3 inches on darker on paved surfaces. And once we get past sunup, I mean, it's not as if temperatures are going down into the 20s tomorrow or lower. After we get past an hour or two of sunrise, the roads are going to open up very, very, very quickly. So I'm thinking, the roads tomorrow morning won't really be that bad, even if we wind up finishing near the high end of all the of my numbers. If it's all out of here long before daybreak, they should have plenty of time to clear what's out there. And then once we get past sunrise, you get past that 8 to 9 o'clock time frame, the sun angle is going to take care of it. So I'm thinking the roads should be in pretty decent shape. You busted Brandon Doherty. They had the snow area just too far south down into Delaware. It was, if there was more cold air, I think you could have made a valid argument to bring the snow line down. I did see that at least for an hour or so, it snowed pretty hard in Wilmington, but that was about it. Corey Bodzie, I'm glad you guys are finally getting some decent snow in New York. Hey, if New York City picks up 5 inches out of this, that'll put them over 20 for the season. And that's not far from their 30-year average, which is 25. The longer term average is up closer to 30. But it's not as gaping a hole as it was before uh, Friday night, Saturday morning. 4 inches actually from the system from Friday night, Saturday morning. I meant to do this. I wanted to see what all the snow totals were. There were some folks. There were some places that got like 5 or 6 inches. I got about close to 4 here at where I am in central Long Island. Long Island was in a very tenuous spot in that event because of the fact that the temperature's literally, it was a margin of error of about a half a degree, and that wound up getting corrected fairly quickly, and it was all snow. So let me grab the 48-hour snowfall. So this is the map. I'll bring it up on the screen. So this is the snowfall from Friday night, Saturday morning from that particular system, which by the way clobbered parts of Nova Scotia with 1.5 feet of snow in some places. Here we go. So let's stretch this out. So this was from Friday night, Saturday morning. This is actual snowfall, and you can pull up the maps out to 72 hours if you like, but the darker blues are all 4 inch amounts. They get all the data they plot it out on the maps and you can see on Long Island, by the way, north of the Long Island Expressway, there were areas that got 4 inches plus. Nobody seemed to get over 4, and the same in coastal Connecticut down into southeastern Massachusetts, some 4 inch amounts with lesser amounts as you moved up north and west of there. That was that system from Friday night, Saturday. Just played on through right near the coast. It didn't really, it started to intensify. And that storm, by the way, was so important in setting the table for this one because the models really did a horrible job with that particular system. Even in the short range, there were 300-mile errors in what was being indicated back on Wednesday for the system for Friday night. And that storm system intensifying created basically an alleyway, a weakness for this system. Rather than try to fly up and go further north up the east side of the Appalachians, or for that matter, the west side of the Appalachians, the flow in the east, if you recall, when we were looking at the jet stream, how absolutely flat it was, and it's going to take the path of least resistance. If there's a storm system out ahead of it, and that kind of a flat flow, it just creates this weakness for it to follow, and that's exactly what this low tonight is doing. Yeah, I know they closed the schools in New York City. I mean, they've kept them open for much bigger snow events than this. I'm just not sure. I don't know the logic behind it, but one of the things in the world we live in today is the fact that they don't want to encounter any kind of liabilities or problems. There's no room anymore. There's no tolerance for error. It seems like it's getting to a point where they're going to have to stand government employees outside to catch every flake before it even hits the ground, because it's just intolerable that we could actually have snow coming down and accumulating on roadways and sidewalks. It's just apparently in the world we live in now, it's just plain wrong. I don't get it. Fred, tornadoes in winter. Well, technically March is really a spring month, and we are now in the period where we are experiencing spring conditions. The lengthening daylight, the uneven heating of the earth, et cetera, et cetera. To have tornadoes and a severe weather outbreak in March is not really that unusual. Quick question from Patricia Owens. How can you have tornado? Well, that's just it. It's, technically it's not in winter. You have the dynamics here. Okay. You had all the dynamics for a severe weather outbreak, and to see it at this time, granted, to see as many tornadoes and to see them as severe as this one was, the one that in Alabama was, and the others that were highly unusual. I grant you that. But not unheard of for this time of year. And going forward, of course, severe weather season just getting started, so we're going to be dealing with this more and more in the coming months. Mirtha, my pleasure. Thank you as always for being here. By the way, uh, Johnny Quest, you've got serious flooding there. I know, you poor guy. With all the rain that you've had, it's you just, it's like the monsoon winds bringing in the rains into Western Virginia have been absolutely unrelenting. Robert Hurley, you're correct. March, April into May. I mean, that's really that's really the core of the severe weather system season. You still get these very cold air masses that come down, and if on the other hand you get a situation where you start to get very warm air coming up into the southern part of the United States, you're going to have severe weather outbreaks. It's not unusual. Think of the temperature gradient across the United States, where you've got readings as low as 15 below zero in the Dakotas, and you've got temperatures in the 70s and I don't know if it got into the 80s today. It probably did, but you've got temperatures getting into the 80s in the southern part of the United States, and temperatures below zero, not that many miles, relatively speaking, up to the north of it. You have a huge temperature gradient there, very large temperature change over a relatively small area. The atmosphere's got to release that in some fashion, and it does it at this time of year in the form of severe weather. All right, so we'll end it here at this point. Thank you so much for being here, JPTR2A. Thanks for hitting super chat. Now the chat board stays open, so if you've got more questions, I'll be sitting here and I will respond to them. Let me just very quickly, for those of you who are interested, I do have my weather platform on Patreon for tons of extra weather coverage. A lot of folks that are on the live streams on a regular basis are also on the Patreon platform. It's just $2 a month, and it does go an awfully long way to support what I'm doing with regards to my weather videos here on YouTube and everything else, and my websites, my app, which you can download for free on Google Play or on the App Store. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee. I'll put up a link for that as well. But if you consider the Patreon platform, not only do we do extra posts, but we also do extra live streams just for Patreon members, and it keeps the it's a much smaller group. We're almost at 260 members now, and increasing. So if you're into weather, that might be a good place for you to be. Now here's a link if you want to download the free weather app on Google Play or on the App Store. And one other easy way to support my channel is if you shop on Amazon. I'll give you the Amazon link. It doesn't cost you a cent. So if you're shopping there, you go via my Joe Stradamus link here, and just do your shopping. Use the search bar. You don't have to buy what's up there on the page, obviously. Just use the search bar, do your shopping, and Amazon throws me back a little bit of coin. I get a couple of cigars out of the deal, and we are all, I'm happy. And we're a participant in the Amazon Services LLC affiliate program. The Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for us to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and its affiliated site. So stick around, and I will answer all of your questions. And thanks a lot for being here. Snow lovers, I can see the flakes coming down out my back door, so I'm thinking it's snowing a little harder here now. So I'm going to go take a look out the front door real quick, and then I'll come right back and be on the chat board with you guys. Good night, everybody.